Hi everybody, welcome back to Life of K, and today I'm going to be filming another episode of my vlog series, A Diary of a Perpetual Single Muslima. So now I'm up to, this is actually going to be vlog 4, and the title is My 90-Day Fiance Story. And the title is just kind of a nod to TV show, 90-Day Fiance. It airs on TLC. I don't know if you've ever heard of it or if you've ever watched it, but there's a reason why I named this particular episode that, which I will get more into later on in the vlog. Now, I will say this part of my story, which is going to be all about my second marriage and divorce, is going to be longer than the first one was. It was a longer marriage, first of all, and there's just a lot more information, a lot more details that comes along with this particular part of my story. So unlike the first vlog where I talked about, or unlike the second vlog where I talked about my first marriage, this one is going to be broken up into 3 parts. So for today, I'm going to be just talking about, I'm just going to be doing part 1, and there will be 2 more parts to follow this one. So I kind of want to just preface the episode with that, so you'll know. So you'll see part 1, part 2, and part 3 with the same title of My 90-Day Fiance Story, because it's just so much information that comes with this particular part of my story that I really had to break it up into 3 parts. Otherwise, it would have been just too long to kind of film it into one long episode. So I just want to start off with saying that. Also, again, if you haven't watched the first 3 vlogs in this series, please go back and check them out, so you can kind of be caught up and understand what I'm talking about, because I am starting from a particular point in time. With that, let's get into it. So like I said, I will get into the title and why I specifically called it 90-Day Fiance Story a little bit later on. So let me start with this first part. So we're doing part 1. And as usual, I have my notebook with my notes in it, so I can kind of focus and know what I'm supposed to be covering for this part. Alright, so let me start at the beginning, I guess, with how we met. So, like the first marriage, we did meet on a Muslim matrimonial site. Yeah, so once again, I was out there, you know, looking to get married. Now, again, if you watched my previous vlog, which was talking about when I was living with my parents, remember I said I was there for like 8 years. So, and I had been looking for quite a few years, you know, for a husband, so I can get remarried. Yeah, so like I was saying, we met on a, you know, a Muslim matrimonial site, and it's kind of funny, great story. But how I even found him, or he found me, or however you look at it, on the site was, I remember I saw it, okay, so I saw his picture first. I will put a disclaimer, it was not, I found out a little bit later that was not actually him, it was a picture of someone else. So you're probably saying, oh my god, he was a catfish. What? Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that, I guess technically that falls in the category of catfishing because it didn't use his own picture. No, in the sense that he did not pursue me using that picture. I did. I pursued him. So, and again, I remember sharing this even with my youngest sister, because she was like here for the whole thing. Like, she was with me from the moment I met him and was, you know, talking with him, emailing him and things like that. So she really knows the full story because she was with me during this time. So I remember, I think I remember telling her, like, oh my god, look at the picture of this brother, he's really good looking. Maybe I should just message him and see if he answers back. And then I remember telling her, like, he's probably not going to answer back because, I don't know, he's really handsome. Those are the kind of guys that don't even really answer ads like that, you know, so it's probably going to get a response, but let's just try it and see what happens. So I did. He didn't wind up answering. I remember being so surprised at that. I did not think I was going to get a response. And then I just started asking some basic questions, where you're from, yada yada, you know, family, the usual stuff. And he answered. Now, his English wasn't that great, so our messages had to be like pretty simple, pretty short, because his English, he was still learning English, and it wasn't all that great. So we really had to keep the messages really simple, basic, because of that, the language barrier. Then, come to find out, he wasn't, of course, well, he wasn't in the United States. He was in Algeria. So I remember thinking, oh my God, that's super far away. I did not know anybody from Algeria at the time. I wasn't even familiar with Algeria. I knew where it was, but that's about it. So I remember thinking, okay, the distance thing, like, how is this even going to work? I'm in the U.S. He is in Algeria. Am I wasting my time here? Because I don't see how this could even possibly work, considering that we're on completely different continents. But, you know, we had just a connection, and we kind of clicked, believe it or not. I know it sounds weird, but we really did. And we just sent, like, lots of messages to each other. Come to find out, we actually did have a lot of shared similar interests and things like that. He seemed really easy to talk to, very laid back. That's what really kind of, I guess you can say, attracted me in the first place and drew me in. Of the picture. And so we just kind of connection. We just kind of started talking and things like that. Got into family. Mentioned he had 2 brothers and a sister. He was living at home. He was actually still a student. He was finishing up his degree in engineering, specifically in architecture. That was interesting. And I was like, well, you know, he's educated. You know, it wasn't like he was, you know, like a lot of foreign people. Like, he wasn't some. Yeah, he was actually educated. He was going to school. You know, so I thought that was really good and commendable. So we just hit it off. So we started talking for a while, and then as we got, like, we had been talking at that point maybe for, I want to say, a couple of months, probably, of exchanging messages, and then he finally confessed to me, like, look, I gotta tell you, the picture I put up there, that's not what I really look like. I think I should share with you what I really do look like. I was like, wait, what? So he sent me his real pictures, what he really looked like, which wasn't that bad. I'm thinking, why didn't you just use those pictures to begin with? Because, I mean, yes, they didn't look any like the pictures he had put up of the other guy, but he wasn't bad looking either. So I remember, like, why didn't you just use your own pictures? Because you looked fine. I can see if you were, like, ugly or something, but you're not. So he apologized for that. He's like, can you forgive me? I'll completely understand if you didn't want to even continue with anything, because I lied to you and I wasn't honest with you about using my own pictures. But he said, I assure you, everything else that I told you about me was true, in terms of, you know, I live at home with my parents, and, you know, my brothers and my sister, and going to school, and, like, everything else was true. I just didn't have the actual real picture of myself. I was like, okay. I remember thinking about it and pausing, because I really wanted to think about it. I'm like, well, should I continue with this? Because he wasn't really being honest with me with the picture. Is that a sign of maybe he could be hiding something else, or at some point in the future will be hiding something else from me? Should I continue? And after I thought about it, I was like, okay, you know what, let me just give it a shot. Let's just see where this goes and continue with correspondence. So that's what I wound up doing, continue with correspondence, but we still obviously had this issue of the fact that we were so far away from each other. So, again, I know a lot of you are probably thinking right now, well, why would you continue with something if you knew the person was that far away? Well, after I talked with him and got to know him more, 2 reasons. First, like I said, we, despite our cultural differences and language barrier and location, we actually did have a lot in common, and our conversations were pretty good. Even though, like I said, his English was limited, he was still in the process of learning English. Talking with me seemed to be helping him with that, and he was very appreciative of that. And we had to keep the messages, of course, very basic and simple because of that, but we had really great conversations, and the messages were, you know, we were getting across the points that we wanted to get across. So that's why I continued with him. Another thing was that he was very sweet, very kind, very down to earth, and I appreciated that, and I liked that. A lot of the brothers I had spoken to previously through the site weren't really like that. A lot of them came with a lot of different baggage, issues. He didn't have any of that. Also, he seemed really religious. He seemed like he really was taking the deen pretty seriously. Like, he would mention things like getting up Friday in the morning, he and his mom making slide together, do the special thing they like to do, or they would even stay up after Fajr and just chat and talk and things like that. I thought that was really sweet, very special, and I liked the relationship he had with his mother. That said a lot about his character. The relationship he had with his mother. So again, these are all things that I was looking into. So I thought, why not? Now, I don't really want to think, please, if you are happen to be from Algeria, I want you to think that this is like an Algeria bashing. It's just so happened my ex is from Algeria. So I don't want anybody who maybe in Algeria or Algeria watching think, oh my god, she's anti-Algeria now. That is not the case. It just happened that's where he was from. Okay? So again, he would tell me a lot about where he lived in his culture, which is all very new for me because, like I said, I didn't even know anybody from Algeria. So learning about where he was from and his culture, that I thought that was really, really cool. And I actually liked that. I liked learning about a new place and new people. So that was why I stuck with it. In case you're wondering, why did I continue this correspondence and why did I continue along this particular path with this person, that really for the most part was why I decided to try to see where it goes. And at this point, I was just seeing where it goes. I didn't really think that it would end in marriage. I was just trying to see where this will lead to. Obviously, there were some also big differences between us. There was an age difference between us. He was much younger than I was, and he had never been married before. So he is single. Like, not, he's never been married before. This would be his first marriage. Didn't have any children, nothing. So, whereas I was divorced and I had a child. So again, that was another issue going in that was a big, I guess, difference between the two of us, other than the age and the location. But despite that, I decided to go forward with it anyway. I really was impressed with a lot of things he had to say, and his relationship with his family was amazing as well. So finally, we're trying to figure out, okay, since we really seemed to like each other and we both were determined to go forward with it and try to make it work, we knew we had to come up with some kind of plan because we're far away. How can this work, realistically speaking? So I thought, well, maybe you could come here to the United States to visit. So that way you can get a chance to meet my parents, my family, and then I would at some point go to visit where you live, and then vice versa. I can meet your parents and your family. This way we could have it. So he said, okay. So I started looking into tourist visas and see if there's anybody can get him a tourist visa so he could come over to the United States and come visit. Proved to be impossible. Apparently, Algeria is one of those countries where they just don't issue tourist visas to very often. As a matter of fact, it was nearly impossible to get a tourist visa for someone from Algeria. It's just something the United States didn't do. So I had to kick that off the table right away. Scratch that. So I knew a tourist visa wasn't going to be possible. They don't issue tourist visas to people from Algeria. It was one of those rare cases, Just support, like there's certain list of countries where it's extremely hard to get tourist visas for, and Algeria unfortunately was on that list. So I thought, okay, now we need a plan B. Either we're going to have to just part ways, or if we really are serious about trying to make it work, then we have to figure out how we're going to meet each other. We can't do anything if we haven't met face to face. So that's when I started looking into what was called a K1 visa or Fiance visa, and that's how I got the whole process of the visa started. Again, go back to what I said at the beginning about my title of this vlog, which was my 9-day fiance story. The reason why I called that is because with the K1 fiance visa, once the person comes over to the United States, you have 90 days to get married. If you do not get married in those 90 days, then you overstay your visa expires basically in those 90 days, and you have to go back to wherever country you come from. So that's why that show was entitled 9-Day Fiance, because that person is responsible for those 90 days, and why I entitled my vlog my 9-Day Fiance story. So I started doing research into the K1 visa. And why I settled on the K1 visa instead of the spousal visa, which a lot of people also do, is because the K1 visa is done a little bit faster. It's the faster of the two visas. Okay, so I thought, okay, so the plan that we came up with was, in order for that to happen, like I said, one of the requirements for the fiance visa is you have to have met in person at least once, and you need to have evidence of this. There's a lot of rules and restrictions and regulations when you do these types of visas. And for your fiance visa, when you are compiling your evidence, it's going to require a lot of evidence. And the main reason for that is because they want to make sure what you have is a legitimate, real relationship. Because people who have in the past have abused the system and bringing people over. People just want to get the green card, and then that's it. So in the past, many people have abused the system. It's even more restricted nowadays, where you really have to show literally a book full of evidence proving to the government that the relationship with this person is legit. So one of the things they require is that you have to have actual evidence that you have met each other in person, basically to prove what you have as a real relationship. So since I already knew it was going to be nearly impossible for him to come to the United States on a tourist visa, I knew the only way that we could possibly meet in person would be for me to go there. So that's what I had to do. So when I was looking into my research on the K1 visa, I start looking into what was the process and all the things I need to do to make this happen. So I knew already that the most difficult part obviously would be getting the evidence to prove that we were a real couple and that we had met. So that was probably the hardest part, I remember thinking. So I knew I needed to go to Algeria to make that happen. So that's what I started planning for. And obviously, if you're showing the government that you have a legitimate relationship, you need to have pictures of that. And in the pictures, you have to show that you're a couple in pictures. You can't just have pictures of you, you know, standing maybe in front of a famous site in whatever country you're going to. Okay, so like I was saying, you need proof that you have a legitimate relationship. So obviously, if you're taking pictures of this relationship, you're gonna need to do things like hug each other, or maybe put your arms around each other, something to show that this is an actual relationship. Now, obviously, as Muslims, I cannot do that since we don't date or have any physical contact with a person. I couldn't very well go over there and start hugging up on him and put my arms around him and taking these pictures. Couldn't do that. So that's why I decided to do the fiance visa, because with that, the plan was for me to go over to Algeria, get married Islamically, so we are Islamically married, with an imam, and that way, at least this will allow me to be able to travel around with him. If I want to travel around with him, we could be alone together, we could take pictures together properly, that I can use to get this K1 visa. So that was the whole reason of getting married over there, and then going over there and getting all that done, so that way I could have all this evidence to send in the hopes of getting approved for this K1 visa. Now, I also want to, I know I did probably skip over this, but I should also include and tell you guys that obviously when all this was going on, yes, my parents didn't know. I did fill them in on what was going on. I told my mom actually first. I did fill her in on what was going on. I told her, you know, about the guy that I met and where I met him, and then we've been talking, and we are really interested in pursuing this and moving forward with this relationship. And I even explained the whole K1 visa process and why this was the best way to get it done, because he was not able to come here on a tourist visa. So obviously the only way I can do that is by going there. I explained the whole thing basically to them, so they were aware of it. I will say my dad was a tougher sell than my mom. My mom was kind of like, okay, my dad, not so much. So that was a little bit difficult, and they had a lot of fitness surrounding that, but that's kind of a separate story. Bottom line is they both did accompany me to Algeria, my mom and my dad. Okay? And the plan was to go and stay with his family. We were going for 10 days, and we were going to stay with his family in their home and get to know each other, meet everybody, get the Islamic marriage done, and so we can have the pictures and things like that. So that was really the plan going into the Algeria trip, so we can get all this done for this fiance visa K1 process. Did not go exactly as planned. What had happened prior to, we were scheduled to leave for Algeria. Mind you, the tickets were bought, everything was done. His mother got very, very sick, had to be hospitalized. So there was a point where we weren't sure if we were even going to be able to go over there, or if it was still going to happen, even though we already made the arrangements and the tickets were already purchased, because of this. And then he was like, you know what, just come anyway. She is getting better. Hopefully by the time you arrive, she would have been released from the hospital and back home. So we decided to go ahead with the plans anyway. But what we did was, we did have to modify the plans. We wound up staying in a hotel actually for the first few days of the trip. And then for the later part of the trip, we stayed at the family's house. So we had to wind up staying in a hotel first, and then later on staying in his family's house. So the trip did have to be modified a little bit because there was an unexpected medical emergency basically. And the good thing was that by the time we arrived, no, it was more like 4 or 5 days after we arrived, she finally was released from the hospital. So we wound up staying in a hotel like 4 or 5 days. And then she was finally released from the hospital, and then we were able to go to his family's house. Now, we arrived in Algiers, which for those who don't know is the capital of Algeria. That is not where he lived. He lived in a smaller city or town, or whatever you want to call it, which was a few hours outside of that. I will not reveal the name of it because it's not really important. But he did not live in Algiers. He did not live in the capital. So there was another few hours car ride from Algiers into where he lived. He and his family lived. But the hotel we stayed in was in the capital, was in Algiers. And when the time came for us to go to his family's house, we did have to, he came and picked us up with a friend, and we wound up driving for a few hours into the city where he did live in. So I also want to include that in my description. After his mother got released from the hospital, she was back at home, so we were able to meet her, meet his siblings, his dad, everybody. We were actually really impressed. We liked it. They were very warm, very friendly, very sweet, very kind. Like, we were really impressed with the whole, just them as in general. They were so welcoming to us. Mind you, this is the first time everybody meeting face to face. We've never been there before. This was my first time even traveling outside the country, so I was just like in awe of everything because I'd never been that far before. So I just want to say that they were so welcoming and so kind to us, and he treated us very, very, very well, and we were very much appreciative of that, seeing how we didn't even know anybody over there. So we did wind up getting married there. There was an imam who, at the local masjid, who said yes, he will do it for us and perform the nikah, perform the wedding. So that's what they did. We wound up actually doing it at his family's house. The imam came to the house, and as well as some friends of his, and his mom was there, and his sister, his brothers. So we wound up doing the nikah there. It was very short, very simple ceremony. It wasn't anything, big, very simple. And the imam came, did the nikah, we had some food or whatever, and we were married. So now this allowed us to be able to go out on our own. We can now go take the pictures, that kind of thing, go out about by ourselves, be alone together, that sort of thing. So that was me very helpful in getting this evidence that I needed for this K1 visa so that he could join me in the United States. And so that's what we did. We were able to go out, we did a little shopping, we went around, we were able to take the pictures along the way and things like that. Since we're now married, we could be alone together, with each other, so that was pretty cool. And we were able to get that done. So that is the end of part 1. I just want to kind of start off by giving the background and what we did with the visa and, the process of trying to bring him to the United States. So that's all of part 1, and in part 2 I will pick up where I left off at. I'll go into him finally arriving here in the United States, how long it took, and what transpired after he got here to the States. So that's part 2. Yeah, stay tuned for that. Like I had told you with the other video when I was talking about my first marriage, obviously for the sake of time I'm not including all the details. It would just be ridiculously long if I told you every single detail that transpired. I'm trying just to hit the important points that happened, just to kind of give you context. But again, there's tons of stuff, obviously, for the purpose of time, I was not able to get into. But hopefully this gives you an idea of how it started off. We met online, we talked. I don't know if I mentioned this also. I don't want to gloss over this part. Like I said, my parents were aware. I was talking to him, and another thing I probably didn't mention was that we did actually see each other while we were talking. What I mean is, we did do Skype, so we were doing video chatting, that kind of thing. So I don't want you to think it was just like messages and things like that. It wasn't. We were doing Skype. Once my parents knew about who I was talking to, we were able to at least video chat with each other so we could actually see each other, that kind of thing. So I just want to make sure I include that in there in a little detail. We were video chatting as well as emailing and all that stuff prior to going to Algeria. So I kind of want to just put that in there as well. So that is where I'm going to end part 1. Please stay tuned for part 2 of my 90-day fiance story, and I'll go into more detail about what happened after we got to the United States. I hope you enjoyed this vlog. This is vlog number 4. Continue to follow, please. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to please click the notification bell so you know whenever I release a new video. And if you have any questions, any comments, please don't forget, feel free to comment down below. I love answering your questions and your comments. Until next time, see you.